It is better to live your own destiny imperfectly than to live an imitation of somebody else's life with perfection. A gift is pure when it is given from the heart to the right person at the right time and at the right place, and when we expect nothing in return. The happiness which comes from long practice, which leads to the end of suffering, which at first is like poison, but at last like nectar. This kind of happiness arises from the serenity of one's own mind. Anyone who is steady in his determination for the advanced stage of spiritual realization and can equally tolerate the onslaughts of distress and happiness is certainly a person eligible for liberation. The peace of God is with them whose mind and soul are in harmony, who are free from desire and wrath, who know their own soul. He who experiences the unity of life sees his own self in all beings and all beings in his own self, and looks on everything with an impartial eye. The non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and their disappearance in due course, are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. The wise grieve neither for the living nor for the dead. There was never a time when you and I and all the kings gathered here have not existed, and nor will there be a time when we will cease to exist. Feelings of heat and cold, pleasure and pain are caused by the contact of the senses with their objects. They come and they go, never lasting long. You must accept them. Selfish action imprisons the world. Act selflessly, without any thought of personal profit. You have control over doing your respective duty, but no control or claim over the result. Fear of failure, from being emotionally attached to the fruit of work, is the greatest impediment to success, because it robs efficiency by constantly disturbing the equanimity of mind. When a person responds to the joys and sorrows of others as if they were his own, he has attained the highest state of spiritual union. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. We are made of our thoughts. We are molded by our thoughts. Left to itself, the mind goes on repeating the same old habitual patterns of personality. By training the mind, however, anyone can learn to step in and change old ways of thinking. Those established in self-realization control their senses instead of letting their senses control them. The immature think that knowledge and action are different, but the wise see them as the same. The Gita is not a book of commandments, but a book of choices. The very heart of the Gita's message is to see the Lord in every creature and act accordingly. Reshape yourself through the power of your will. Never let yourself be degraded by self-will. The will is the only friend of the self, and the will is the only enemy of the self. When your mind has overcome the confusion of duality, you will attain the state of holy indifference to things you hear and things you have heard. Actions do not cling to me because I am not attached to their results. Those who understand this and practice it live in freedom. The man or woman who realizes God has everything and lacks nothing. Having this, they desire nothing else and cannot be shaken by the heaviest burden of sorrow. The law of karma states simply that every event is both a cause and an effect. Every act has consequences of a similar kind, which in turn have further consequences, and so on. And every act, every karma, is also the consequence of some previous karma. Two forces pervade human life, the Gita says: the upward thrust of evolution and the downward pull of our evolutionary past. The will is the only friend of the self, and the will is the only enemy of the self. In the Gita, the word yogi often has a more modest definition. It can mean a person who does his or her job with detachment from the rewards. Just as a seed can grow into only one kind of tree, thoughts can produce effects only of the same nature. Nothing is ever lost in following one's own dharma, but competition in another's dharma breeds fear and insecurity. Just as the world dissolves into a sea of energy, the mind dissolves into a river of impressions and thoughts, a flow of fragmentary data that do not hold together. All beings are born to delusion, overcome by the dualities which arise from wish and hate. but those men of virtuous deeds in whom sin has come to an end, freed from the delusion of dualities. Happiness is a state of mind and has nothing to do with the external world. Make it easy for yourself. Get organized and live in the moment. Your day-to-day activities should not steal your happiness. A person can rise through the efforts of his own mind, or draw himself down, in the same manner, because each person is his own friend or enemy. Calmness, gentleness, silence, self-restraint, and purity. These are the disciplines of the mind. Self-knowledge turns to ash all actions of dualities on your mind and brings you inner peace. Man is made by his beliefs. As he believes, so he is. All happiness in the material world has a beginning and an end, but happiness in Krishna is unlimited, and there is no end. It is better to live your own destiny imperfectly than to live in imitation of somebody else's life with perfection. When consciousness is unified, however, all vain anxiety is left behind. There is no cause for worry, whether things go well or ill. No one who does good work will ever come to a bad end, either here or in the world to come. Lust, anger, and greed are the three gates to self-destructive hell. Whatever happened, happened for the good. Whatever is happening for the good. Whatever will also happen for the good. Change is the law of the universe. You can be a millionaire or a pauper in an instant. The person is the same. He is simply experiencing the play of the gunas. As long as he identifies with his body and mind, he is at the mercy of this play. His judgment will be better and his vision clear if he is not emotionally entangled in the outcome of what he does. Be fearless and pure. Never waver in your determination or your dedication to the spiritual life. Give freely. Be self-controlled, sincere, truthful, loving, and full of the desire to serve. That one is dear to me who runs not after the pleasant or away from the painful, grieves not, lusts not, but lets things come and go as they happen. You have a right to perform your prescribed duties, but you are not entitled to the fruits of your actions. Calmness, gentleness, silence, self-restraint, and purity. These are the disciplines. Through selfless service, you will always be fruitful and find the fulfillment of your desires. The spirit is beyond destruction. No one can bring an end to the spirit which is everlasting. Those who are motivated only by desire for the fruits of action are miserable, for they are constantly anxious about the results of what they do. Perform your obligatory duty, because action is indeed better than inaction. The mind is restless and difficult to restrain, but it is subdued by practice. As the blazing fire reduces wood to ashes, similarly, the fire of self-knowledge reduces all karma to ashes. Those who eat too much or eat too little, who sleep too much or sleep too little, will not succeed in meditation. But those who are temperate in eating and sleeping, work and recreation, will come to the end of sorrow through meditation. The mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna, and to subdue it is, it seems to me, more difficult than controlling the wind. The soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. In this world, there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism, and one who has become accomplished in the practice of devotional service enjoys this knowledge within himself in due course of time. I am death, which overcomes all, and the source of all being still to be born. Knowing me as the friend of all creatures, the Lord of the universe, one surrenders unto me with a heart. Whatever you do, make it an offering to me. The food you eat, the sacrifices you make, the help you give, even your suffering. The person whose mind is always free from attachment, who has subdued the mind and senses, and who is free from desires, attains the supreme perfection of freedom from karma through renunciation. The happiness which comes from long practice, which leads to the end of suffering, which at first is like poison, but at last like nectar. This kind of happiness arises from the serenity of one's own mind. The power of God is with you at all times, through the activities of mind, senses, breathing, and emotions, and is constantly doing all the work using you as a mere instrument. The supreme reality exists outside and inside of all living beings, the moving and the non-moving. Because it is subtle, it is beyond the power of the material senses to see or to know. Although far, far away, it is also near to all. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings, in both their happiness and their distress. I am the beginning, middle, and end of creation. The world is imprisoned in its own activity, except when actions are performed as worship of God. Therefore, one who performs his prescribed duties for the satisfaction of the Supreme, without selfish motives, becomes free from bondage. The peace of God is with them whose mind and soul are in harmony, who are free from desire and wrath, who know their own soul. Those who are motivated only by desire for the fruits of action are miserable, for they are constantly anxious about the results of what they do. Whatever action is performed by a great man, common men follow in his footsteps. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. Those who are devoid of attachment, who are non-egoistic, endowed with great resolve, and who are enthusiastic, with their senses under control, and who are dedicated to the welfare of all beings, certainly attain me. He alone sees truly, who sees the Lord the same in every creature, who sees the deathless in the hearts of all that die. Seeing the same Lord everywhere, he does not harm himself or others. Those who are free from anger and all material desires, who are self-realized, self-disciplined, and constantly endeavoring for perfection, are assured of liberation in the Supreme in the very near future. One who is not envious but is a kind friend to all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination, his mind and intelligence fixed on me. Such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. That one I love, who is incapable of ill will, who is friendly and compassionate, living beyond the reach of I and mine, and of pleasure and pain, patient, contented, self-controlled, firm in faith, with all his heart and all his mind given to me. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting, and it is joyfully performed. There has never been a time when you and I have not existed, nor will there be a time when we will cease to exist. As the same person inhabits the body through childhood, youth, and old age, so too at the time of death, he attains another body. As a strong wind sweeps away a boat on the water, even one of the roaming world of the senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intellect. Let your aim be the good of all. Then carry out your task in life with an unswerving devotion to truth, refusing to yield to selfish desires or to the errors of human nature. Even a little endeavor in practicing the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga protects one from the most dangerous type of fear. The ignorant work for their own profit, Arjuna. The wise work for the welfare of the world, without thought for themselves. It is better to engage in one's own occupation, even though one may perform it imperfectly, than to accept another's occupation and perform it perfectly. One who has wisdom and discernment is always calm and collected. Such a person is in true knowledge. There is nothing in the world as purifying as knowledge. One who has attained purity of heart through prolonged practice of karma yoga automatically sees the light of truth in the self in course of time. Just as a candle cannot burn without fire, men cannot live without a spiritual life. The peace of God is with them, whose mind and soul are in harmony, who are free from desire and wrath, who know their own soul. Yoga is the journey of the self, through the self, to the self. A disciplined mind brings happiness. Sever the ignorant doubt in your heart with the sword of self-knowledge. Observe your discipline. Arise. The meaning of karma is in the intention. The intention behind action is what matters. No effort in this world is lost or wasted. A fragment of sacred duty saves you from great fear. One who has control over the mind is tranquil in heat and cold, in pleasure and pain, and in honor and dishonor.